The only problem with great moments like that is that you become defined by them, and the man who achieved that one is alongside me now, Grant Elliott. It's a delight to have you on the commentary team, Grant. And I guess, well, I mean, at least it provided you with the means to make a living for the rest of your life after dinner speaking and reliving that moment. You hit Dale Steyn for 6 at Eden Park to put New Zealand in their first ever World Cup final. Just a fabulous memory, I guess. Does it still give you goosebumps now?
Honestly, I haven't actually watched the whole game. I try and say to myself, I don't want to be defined by a moment like
you
that. are. I always say that, you know, cricket never defines you as a person, so you have to find something and try and reinvent yourself as a cricketer after your cricket career. But, you know, I look back at that time, and that was such a fun time for cricket in New Zealand, fun time for the guys that I played with, just us as a unit. Like, we had a great team of guys, still friends with a lot of the team, and just it was memorable because it was a home-based, you know, World Cup. It was in Australia, New Zealand. We had the public right behind us, and we played some unbelievable cricket. You know, that semi-final was an amazing game, but, you know, Martin Guttel scored a double hundred at the Sky Stadium, hitting guys out of the stadium, and you know, Brendan McCullum was scoring 20-ball 50s to get us off to the start, and you had Trent Boult, who was swinging the ball around corners, and he was bowling his quota of 10 overs before the 40-over mark. And we were playing exciting cricket. And then you had Kane Williamson when Australia scored 160 at Eden Park, lofting, I think it was the Hoff. No, who's the Hoff? Hazelwood, lofting Hazelwood over mid-on to win the game there. When New Zealand were 9 down and the crowd was chanting to Australia, "You worse than England," because we finished the game against the English by 2:30 in the afternoon. I gave tickets to friends. They didn't even make it to the ground because it finished that quickly. So we had an exceptional World Cup build-up, and I think the public believed, everyone that was backing New Zealand believed that this was New Zealand's time. You know, this was the opportunity to win the World Cup, and then we fell over at the last hurdle. And I've got my reasons why, but we played some unbelievable cricket.
Brendan McCullum apportioned some of the blame to himself, a lot of the blame to himself. He said, you know, that the one thing he did, he followed the golden rule throughout the tournament, which is watch the ball. And then he got to the final and he said he took his eye off the ball, literally. Didn't watch the ball and failed and didn't make a flying start, which he had done through most of the tournament. We'll finish with your thoughts on why you fell at the final hurdle. But we're talking about the 2015 World Cup, for those of you who haven't twigged yet. Grant Elliott hitting Dale Steyn, penultimate delivery for 6. Do you remember the exact numbers still to this day? And when I said you are defined by that, of course, you don't define yourself by that one very, very special moment, but a lot of cricket lovers around the world will remember you for that one moment, and you won't be able to change that. Do you remember the actual numbers? Do you remember what was required off the last 2 or the last 3 still to this day?
I don't really.
Because you weren't in the driving seat, to be honest.
I remember, I mean, this is quite a cool story. I remember someone messaged me during COVID, and when everyone was in isolation, and they said, the game is on. It's on Sky 3. I was like, what game? They said semi-final. And I was sitting there on the couch, and I said to my 2 boys, so at the time he would have been maybe 7, and the other boy would have been 11. And they were sitting there. The 11-year-old knew what was kind of happening, but the 7-year-old was watching it like it was live, and it was the last 5 overs. So we were watching, and he was on the edge of his seat.
He's like, come on, Dad!
Oh, he's getting so nervous, and it was really it was satisfying to watch him see that moment, because I don't go, hey, look, that's what Dad did, you know. No one does that. The kids think their dad's a bit of an idiot anyway. So, yeah, that was a special moment. But I think I want to say that it was maybe 17 off 2, maybe 18 off 2 that we needed, and then we got it down to 12 off 1. I think Morkel bowled a good over, but I hit him for when we needed 16 off 7, and I hit a 4 to finish the Morkel over, and then that put us probably in parity. I always think 12 and over in the last over is probably parity. You sort of could go either way.
Yeah, well, it is now. My recollection when I was commentating on the game was that it felt more 10 years ago than it does now. Now I'd be saying at parity or even giving it to the batting side, but back then, and Daniel Vittori made a critical contribution as well, didn't he? There was an inside edge that just went past A.B. de Villiers, the keeper, and so yeah, there were things that went New Zealand's way, and I was not alone in thinking that destiny was beckoning for New Zealand. Let's rewind a little bit to your early career, and I want to say that because of what Kevin Peterson said about leaving South Africa, there is this assumption that people leave South Africa to pursue their careers elsewhere for negative reasons. And I just want to say and make this point that South Africa has been an overproducer of professional cricketers for basically a century. You look at Robin Smith and Alan Lamb and Tony Greig before that, and even before that. So what was it that prompted you to seek your fortunes elsewhere in New Zealand, and you made a wonderfully successful career here in Wellington? What was the moment? That was 2001, wasn't it?
2003. I didn't have a choice, to be honest. I was sitting in the Netherlands, and Alan Curry, CEO, and Shukri Conrad, now Test coach. We had a chuckle with him about it last season, but I got a phone call from my agent saying, "You've been left off the contract list." And I was professional from the age of 16, scored a double hundred at the age of 17, 18 against England under 19s. So I was sort of always destined to be like that all-rounder, and opened the bowling for South Africa under 19 the year before my stress fractures hit. Everyone laughs when I tell them I was going to the Dennis Lilly Fast Bowling Academy. But I bowled with a bit of pace, but got injured in the back early on, so I just concentrated on batting more so. But got a phone call. I was in the Netherlands, been left off the contract list. I was promised that I was going to be on the contract list. I was a 23-year-old, and I phoned the coach, Shooks, and said, "What's going on?" He said he didn't know, which I found confusing because he was the coach. And I think what happened is they just bumped Steve Elworthy in and bumped me out as a young player, and thought they could offer me a coaching contract. And I told them there was a few expletives in it. I said, "I'm not a coach." And I put the phone down, and then I started speaking to some Kiwis in the Netherlands, and I said, "Can't go back to South Africa, I haven't got a contract anywhere." They said, "Well, come play club cricket in Christchurch." So off I went. Packed my bags, went to Christchurch, started again. Clean canvas, all that stuff that I'd done as a young player, schoolboy cricket, and you know how strong that is. And going through those pathways, everyone sort of knows, I guess, the players that have gone through the pathway, and then the natural progression to international cricket. Played one game for South Africa, and found myself in Christchurch in a park, Harewood Park, and I was like, "Where are the nets?" And they're like, "They're in the shed there, we've just got to get them out." And there were these wire nets, and we'll put them out. I also, on the first game, they said, "Grant, we need help with the covers." I said, "Well, what's the groundsman doing?" And they said, "We don't have groundsmen." Off I went to go and put the covers on. So yeah, it was a massive change, and starting again from zero. I had to try and build my career up from club cricket.
Half your life now. You left at 23 then, or 2003. And so you're 45 now. You've had half your life in South Africa, half your life in New Zealand, and I don't suppose that you have any regrets. You've had a fabulous life and career in New Zealand, and now it's continuing in broadcasting. Do you work on a radio show as well?
I work with Daniel McCarty. We've got something called the Saturday Sesh. We just talk about everything sports. We've got some dedicated listeners. I support Everton, he supports Liverpool. He doesn't like me, I don't like him, so it works perfectly. It's a good little Saturday number. We've had a number of people on the show actually. Some good friends from South Africa. We've had Jonathan Trott, we've had Morne Morkel, we've had Robin Peterson. We even had Hugh Bladen. We got the uncle on. And Daniel made me do my impersonation of him as well. So we've had some brilliant people and told some great stories, and I enjoy that. I really enjoy the funny side of things. I think there's so many sporting stories that just are untold. And we uncover quite a few on our Saturday sesh, which brings a lot of warmth to my heart.
I would imagine that you picked up some interesting stories as well outside of both New Zealand and South Africa, because you played what I think for a number of counties in the Vitality Blast, PSL, Caribbean Premier League, Bangladesh Premier League. I'm right, aren't I? You played in all of those.
Yeah, I decided that, once my international career, and you know what, in hindsight, I look at someone like Jimmy Anderson and I think, Mike Hesson did say to me, he said, "Oh, do you think you'd be able to play in the next World Cup? I'd love you to." And I thought, I don't think I could. But in hindsight, I wish I had, and I wish someone had come to me and just tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you don't need to retire now. Go take 6 months out. Go and think about it. Go and relax. Just get away from cricket." And I woke up one day, we're playing Chapel Hadley series, and I said to Mike Sandor, who's the manager now, I said, "Roman, I think I'm done." He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "I think I'm finished my career. I think I'm done." He goes, "Well, do you want to fly the family up for the game?" So I did, and we won the Chapel Hadley. I ended up scoring 50 in my last innings, and after the bat up, I had my son waving at me, which was a special moment. But I look back at it and I go, you know what, I still had more in the tank. Like, I probably, if I'd taken a break, hadn't gone to franchise cricket can be quite soul-destroying, I must say. There's a lot of people that play for themselves, and I just think you're not playing for the city of Chittagong, or you're not playing for Hyderabad or Mumbai. You're playing for your wallet. I think playing international cricket is just so special. You've got a special group of people who are playing for their country and playing for 5 million people in New Zealand, and that's how I felt. That's how I felt playing international cricket, and that's why I'm such an advocate for international cricket. I think that the character that people show, and you think of test matches of the past, and Kepler Wessels strapping his hand to his bat even though he's got a broken hand, and Graham Smith coming out with one hand, that sort of stuff. I don't think you see that in franchise cricket. Like, you will see it in international cricket. It's country versus country, and that's special.
The Vitality Blast would be different because there's the counties. I mean, there's a long and proud history amongst the counties, and I think that the Vitality is probably my favourite domestic competition. But what is the future? I mean, you don't get current players saying what you've just said, telling the honest, unvarnished truth. Is that I mean, there are players who are playing for 17s, moving from tournament to tournament before they've even finished. Purely, you called it playing for your wallet, which is, again, the unvarnished truth. I mean, they say it's maximising my earning potential in a short career. Is it sustainable, Grant Elliott? Is it sustainable? Are we going to reach a burnout point where, I don't know, I guess the players will carry on. There'll always be players to play in these tournaments, but will there be audiences? Will there be interest? Is it possible to be interested in tournaments around the world at domestic level? How do you see the future?
The future is going to be just like Premier League football, privately owned teams. You play for Chelsea, you're not going to play for England. I'm paying you 40 million to play for Chelsea. Well, why would I release you to play for England? And I think that it's scary in that a lot of the IPL teams, they'll have teams based in South Africa now. So they've got the SAT20, they've got the IPL, and then you've got the Caribbean teams as well. So some of the IPL owners have teams based in all these competitions. So potentially someone like Kane Williamson, they could be Mumbai-based player for the whole year and play in all those different teams and competitions if there wasn't the auction, or they retain them for that, and then you'd have to ask permission to be released to play for your country. I'd like to see the window of IPL. Okay, it is what it is. Let's give India that window, but then let's also try and create that window and give financial security to the players that are playing international cricket. So they're only at 18%, I think, revenue with the IPL. If that can be bumped up closer to NBA, close to NFL, then maybe a percentage can go to governing bodies, and they can pay their players multi-year contracts, decent money to retain them to play international cricket.
18%, is that the the gross revenue, percentage of gross revenue generated by the game that goes to the players?
From what I understand, yeah.
It's low, isn't it?
Yeah, it's low when they compared it to other competitions. I think, NBA, NFL, they're over 40%. So I think NFL's closer to 70. So, if they're getting that sort of percentage, maybe you can take off a chunk and give it to the governing bodies and go, there you go, there's your remuneration to try and give the players retainers to stay and play Test cricket.
The future then of international cricket being sustained is to pay the players more. But that's not to say that it's about the money, is it? That's just to encourage them not to take the easy money and more money. Many international coaches and CEOs have told me that their players in the West Indies, the Caribbean players, are earning 5 times as much to not play for the West Indies. So if you're saying just match that, then you'll have players wanting to play for their countries and not wanting to play for their wallets and play for the city of Chittagong.
Yeah, and it's the lure of the dollar, isn't it? So when you look at the discrepancy between what you're getting paid. So Kane Williamson took a partial contract this year because he wanted to play in the SAT20. Now, they're obviously offering him substantial amount, but also it opens up, I guess, Big Bash and all of those T20. Gives you more time with family, so it's not just the wallet. It does give you more time with family, more time, in one country. Otherwise, as an international cricketer, I remember the 1 year travelling 9 months of the year, and that's tough. It's tough to have a normal sort of lifestyle. New Zealand do it well. The families travel with them now, and they try to create a more sort of homely environment. But it is tough. International cricket is tough, but so satisfying. Like the most satisfying years of cricket that you'll ever play, because you're playing for a higher cause.
Let's go back to Dale Steyn, the man who you emotionally bruised for the rest of his life by hitting him for 6 to reach the final of the 2015 World Cup. He tried his hand at franchise cricket. Now, he'd obviously done very well. He'd played 10 years of IPL, so he didn't need the money, but he thought that he thought he would find it difficult to let go of the game, and he tried. He went to a couple of franchise tournaments, and he found himself in his room alone, teammates he didn't know. You said that it was, challenging, emotionally challenging. He found it soul-destroying. I mean, he's a sensitive guy, Dale Steyn. He's an animal that side of the boundary rope, but a very quiet, gentle, empathetic person off the cricket field. And he's not alone. He's absolutely not alone. The IPL teams have actually brought in professionals, haven't they, to try and work with the emotional wellness of their players, but it doesn't exist elsewhere. And I know for a fact that there are players who are feeling vulnerable.
Yeah, I think you do feel quite isolated. You go from playing in a country where the culture's all the same. You've got your same interests. You're going out for dinner. You've got lads that you play domestically with, and and you get quite close to those players, and you have great relationships with them. To go into franchise cricket where you look around the team, and I almost liken it to you going from a team sport into being a professional golfer. You listen to the professional golfers on the circuits, and they're on their own. They've got their caddy, and some of them are sleeping out of the cars, and they're trying to make a lifestyle out of it, and it's tough. But you go into that single-minded, I need to get a score, I need to do because you're paying for your livelihood. And I think if you can change that, in franchise cricket, but you don't have the time together. You've got 6 weeks together, max. So I think now the IPL's 10 weeks together. I mean, it's great over 10 years. Hopefully, Dale Steyn, he would have had some great relationships with people if he stayed in the same team. But also, you've seen that they're not guaranteed to stay in the same team.
It's a mega auction every 3 years. I mean, you've got guys who've played for 6 teams in the IPL, and they've, over the course of 14 years, it's crazy. Just go to the top of the game. The top golfers and top tennis players travel with their own entourage, don't they? I mean, it's an individual, but they've got an entourage of 10 or 12 masseurs and dietitians and the like, and we're beginning to see that with cricket as well, aren't we? Guys like Kieran Pollard and Dwayne Bravo and those pioneers, if you call it that, but they're travelling from time. They're turning down a national contract. They're almost without a contract with anybody. They're just travelling from tournament to tournament to tournament. And again, it just doesn't seem to work for cricket, to my mind. Maybe I'm just older generation.
I'd love to just see that IPL window. The players are given that window, take that window and try and make it work with international cricket. It's all these other tournaments that are popping around. I think that create that variable now where players go, and even in the women's game's susceptible to it as well. You know, someone like Mealy Kerr, she can go play in the 100, she can go play in the Big Bash, she can go and play in the women's IPL. Does she really need international cricket? You know?
Well, they're world champions now.
I know. World champions. Next to the Mace, don't forget, world test champions. Got the Mace as well. I think it's in the museum. Have you seen it? Yes.
The New Zealand Cricket Museum is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And so is the inaugural Hall of Fame. Grant Elliott is part of our commentary team. The good news, Grant, is that your roast lamb and sweet potato and salad lunch has arrived, and it's overwhelmingly good, absolutely brilliant. A final word then, just a final thought on the future of Test cricket and the World Test Championship. For all its comical imperfections, and it is imperfect as a tournament, it has reinvigorated Test cricket, hasn't it? You've got a minute.
Yeah, I think the table definitely has. The fact that there's always something running on every game, every series. If we could just give the players enough of a retainer to stay in Test cricket, the good players, then I can see us just reviving it, giving it CPR. But it's a beautiful game. I mean, I've loved watching every minute here. I mean, you know, growing up with the sounds of Test cricket in the background, that's my memories of cricket. That's why I love it so much. So I want to hold on to that for as long as possible.